joining me this morning is Srinath Sridharan. Srinath, thank you so much for your time. We missed having you yesterday, and we also missed that sort of critical analysis of Budget 2026 and the counterintuitive aspects that you often bring into our conversations. But I want to ask you, Budget 2026 spoke a lot about MSMEs, fisheries, Capex outlay, services sector including tourism and medical drugs. But beyond all this, there's something called sentiment, and that sentiment seemed absent from yesterday's budget speech that Finance Minister delivered. While on the surface of it, there's nothing really to complain about the budget, but nothing really to celebrate either, especially when it comes to the salaried class, the middle class of India. What was that missing spark from Budget 2026?
I mean, let me be probably as blunt as I can. I think middle class has been left out in the entire policy thinking itself. I think it shows lack of creativity and inspiration to think about what to do for them. I'm almost tempted to say, are there no elections around so that there is something for the middle class? And unfortunately, no. Of course, we understand that there is very less leeway fiscally. Simple things like the public capex, the government capex coming in higher also shows that despite the supposed confidence that India Inc. has on this government, private capex has not come in at all. So the middle class, unfortunately, has been left out in the entire policy narrative. But of course, from the policy aspect, I want to bring one question. I don't have the answer, but probably more a question, curiosity to say that isn't the first time that the budget exercise is missing the entire layer of bureaucracy available. We don't have a functioning quite a few bureaucrats in the finance ministry.
Yeah.
And is that reflecting in such an uninspiring budget, despite the volatility, the uncertainties geopolitically, all of that is aside.
Yeah.
So I have a fear that probably the dream team as was seen is no more the dream, probably is just fantasy.
Okay, so the dream team is definitely one player down. But, you know, while we understand the missing sentiment as far as middle class, as far as especially individual income taxes go, the government could argue that a lot was done last year. Perhaps last year's budget delivered for the middle class a lot higher than the expectations were. But even on the industry side, even on the reform side, I think a few big misses include no expansion of the PLI scheme, no revision to the PLI scheme, because there have been some great beneficiaries of PLI and some absolute duds. One was expecting that there would be some reform on the PLI scheme. That was a big miss. And again, complete, absolute radio silence on climate goals, climate financing. The budget was supposed to be a reformist policy outlook for the future, but both these critical industrial as well as sort of social sectors were given a big miss, in my opinion. Do you concur?
So I do concur. I think while they've attempted to make it a strong state capacity-led budget, but it has reflected in a weak household confidence and a weaker corporate confidence. I mean, I'm not even alluding to the stock market reaction to this. But what kind of intrigues and surprises me is that almost a lot of points in the economic survey have not been factored into the budget at all. So is there a lack of coordination? Have they not thought this through? Have they not done enough stress testing of the data and the projections?
Anything specific, Srinath, that pops out, which was a big emphasis in the economic survey, but did not make it to the budget document?
So, for example, the ease of doing business, and if you link it to manufacturing sector, the reality is there's a growing trade deficit with China. If you want to catch up with China, financialization won't solve for it, but industrialization only will solve for it.
But the government will argue that it is reducing import taxes on components for electronics, a 40,000 crore rupee outlay. It is sort of, you know, giving you tax concessions on importing machinery that goes into rare earth, critical minerals mining. So the government is saying, could potentially say, to your point, that, you know, we have given these SOPs. Beyond that, it has to be the private sector that has to become competitive.
So yes, the challenge there is this, Karthik. I mean, let's look at it in two segues. One of it is the economic segue, and the other is the sentiment segue. The first one is economic. Any budget has to address short-term, mid-term, and the long-term. Structural reforms are to induce confidence and capability over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years. Mid-term, probably 3 years, and short-term is now giving instant relief. So this budget probably attempts to do some of the long-term, but not really. And on the sentiment segue, where is that corporate India confidence? And I've asked this before, and we've had this conversation many times. Every time, right after the budget, if you look at the scores given by the corporate captains in India, it will be 8 on 10, 9 on 10, 10 on 10. But why are they not investing? Why are they diversifying their family offices to put money abroad?
Yeah.
So some of these are the questions which the political narrative has to actually address. And I think that will never reflect in the budget day. It has to be more the politics of it, saying if that were the case, what is the real problem? Let me give you a quick analogy there. Let's look at, let's say, MSME. MSME, lot has been done, and I think the last 3 years ago, when we brought in the ability to look at export competitiveness and stuff like that, these are, I think, what frameworks get created. Can we get bureaucracy out of that? Can we make it market-led? Why is it that anecdotally, if you speak to MSME and SME, they still don't get credit access, they still don't get a lot of this percolating down to them? So my worry is, are we doing more of these as narratives saying Menetor Dedia and it is not percolating down? Because MSMEs are not going to come all the way to Delhi. If I'm sitting in Bathinda or Ludhiana or Coimbatore, and that is where I need my action in my language of what it means to me. And I travel a lot, and I've heard enough people not realize what is available in various of these schemes. Okay. And I think there is a challenge. And what to me this budget doesn't address, Karthik, and we have a larger challenge, is the unemployment situation, which the economic survey addresses. The budget is completely silent about it. Completely silent about urbanization, climate change, as you said, but more importantly, urbanization.
Absolutely.
We have a large challenge of increasing urbanization, and our cities are collapsing. And this is completely blasé about it. So to me, politically, it sounds as if it is just a tick mark, yet another statement of accounts that has been delivered without thinking through policy direction at all.
Absolutely.
And I'm also very mindful where in the previous years, whenever we have had a chat, I've always said, why is the media making budget day a big day? And reality is, it is coming to bite them because you made it so big and you're not delivering on that.
Absolutely, you're right. But you know, again, just to play devil's advocate here, Srinath, you know, there was a conversation we had during the economic survey with a few experts, including former bureaucrats, and one of the points that emerged was that unemployment, skilling, these are subjects that the center at best can have capital attribution allocation to. But at the end of the day, creating jobs, creating skills is the job of state governments, state budgets and the private sector. So the union budget and the finance minister can turn back and say, hey, we are giving an equity fund 10,000 crore rupees for MSMEs. Now, how states sort of use money from there is something for the states to decide and not really for the center to.
I'm glad that you said this. So it also brings me to the other favorite topic that most of the media has been discussing last 2 weeks. So we are saying that then why do our chief ministers all rush to Davos? End of the day, if they have to look inward at capability, they better not rush to Davos or Delhi. Actually look at their own state.
Look at their own states, go to their own industry clusters and understand firsthand what the issues are, because at the end of the day, the banks will also say that, hey, I've got to keep my books clean as well. I don't know whether the MSME who is coming knocking at my door is credit worthy or not, because if my NPA goes up, I get a beating down from RBI.
That's true. But again, to be fair enough, the banks are also, they will have to reimagine themselves as social engineering institutions. Banks are not just about capitalist institutions. They need to make money. And which is why the concept of your priority sector lending is there in the first place. But the reality is understanding MSME cannot come from sitting in the desk and running simple Excel sheet models. Each of the state or each of the cluster, each of the district, each of the segments in MSME and SME are very, very different needs and wants and gestation period of capital cycles. That's something I think we have enough data available. We have enough, I think, even talent available. But trying to do it at the macro level, Karthik, I think the last session, I think we'll have to look at it. If states in the center can come together very well and despite the criticism or whatever sort, work on a GST council, can they do something better in some of these?
Absolutely.
Which means that we all speak about Viksit Bharat. It cannot look like only the center-led program. It should be national-led program. And I think that, to me, was missing in this entire budget.
Absolutely. Well, final question to you, Srinath. You know, we are almost completely out of time, but I really want to understand what next, because budget is done and dusted. Cabinet has approved it. Opposition, as expected, has criticized it. India will move ahead, but India's quality of air, quality of water, quality of life will stay just the same. How does India from here progress towards Viksit Bharat?
So I think first, if we decide that let's look at human dignity, quality of living. I think that is far more important because I was always said that the numbers are one part of looking at, let's look at the per capita GDP and so on and so forth. Even today, the per capita GDP, if you remove the richest 100 Indians, the per capita GDP nearly drops 40%. So the reality is we are a low middle income segment country. We are not even a middle class country. And in the political economy, we have a large middle class, sentimentally and financially.
Correct.
And that is where it kind of hurts. How do we make their life better? And how do we give them confidence? And I think the feeling of a proud, I am an Indian, I stay here despite this. And I think that is more and more visible. Simple, the last couple of months, NCR and the northern part of the country inundated with quality of life. Similar is Mumbai, where I live. And if you look at a lot of other states, seem to be jumping the development back then.
And that exactly was potentially the missing spark and the missing sentiment from a financial policy statement like Budget 2026. I'm sorry, Srinath, we are completely out of time, but we can carry on and on discussing these issues and more. But for today, let's leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time, Srinath.